And we welcome you into Dodger Poke Report, where tonight we have a very, very, very special guest. As you see on your screen, Lael Lockhart Jr. joins Dodger Poke, and I want to thank you very much for coming in this evening.
Yeah, for sure. It was awesome.
Let's back up. You grew up in Friendswood, Texas. I have been there very many times. I've gone to the Houston Bowl when Oklahoma State was playing it. I've been to the Kemah Boardwalk, been down obviously to the Galveston Beach and all those kind of things. So great place to grow up. Just kind of talk about growing up in that area of the world.
Yeah, it was super awesome. It's small town vibe. It's everything you imagine when it comes to that Texas high school football where everything shuts down for football games. It's very close-knit community. It's a really cool situation. I loved growing up there, that's for sure.
Well, and a lot of things to do, and obviously you grew up loving baseball, but with all those things to do as a kid, what got you hooked on baseball at a younger age?
My dad kind of took the reins on it. He threw me into every sport, whether it was gymnastics, baseball, soccer, just anything like that. It was whatever my friends were doing. We were all doing as a group, and our dads, it was a whole lot of first kids. So they were all the coaches' dads also. They were just really taking over on everything. But baseball started winning me over whenever I kind of saw that I was a little bit better than the group I was playing with.
Yeah.
And kind of know how guys will bump up an age group, and it seemed like bump up two age groups and whatever the case was. I think that's when I noticed, and I really made the baseball only decision whenever it came to around my sophomore year of high school.
Yeah, and you were a three sport star to that point. You had a very successful career, basketball, football player too. Up to that point, you were district MVP, Galveston County MVP, Texas Sports Connection, top 50 player. So talk about your great career there at Friendswood High School.
Man, it was a blast. It was kind of crazy to watch because whenever I was growing up, there was a group of guys that was coming in before me, and they got really close to winning a state championship at Friendswood, which I think at the time they were maybe 4A, so it wasn't the biggest conference you can be in. But it was really cool as a kid in Friendswood to look up to those guys and see them get that close. And so once I kind of was getting up in the ranks when it comes to baseball and all the rankings you see in the area, I was like, all the travel ball stuff, super fun. But it would be a whole lot of fun and mean a whole lot to me and kind of my family if we went and ended up winning the championship for those guys that I looked up to and wanted to just kind of take back that big high school baseball tournament championship back to Friendswood.
And you mentioned it being kind of the small town community, the Friday night lights effect to it. You have a great high school career. You decide to stay close, go to the University of Houston. You have a great career there. So talk about the transition and the decision to be a Houston Cougar.
So a lot of it went into just like I've been saying, it's all about me playing with buddies. So I played on a travel team down in Houston with a lot of my friends, and a lot of us were ended up committing to Houston. And it just happened to be there was about 8 or 9 of us all going to Houston. They're right there down the street. And in my mind, I had all these choices and all the schools I wanted to go to. And I kind of knew the caliber of guys that were going into Houston. And I was like, you know what? It'll be a blast. I keep playing with these guys at the next level in college. I'm not going to be a brand new face on campus that doesn't know anybody. If I go to somewhere in Tennessee or California and travel all over,
Sure.
I'm going to have all these good friends of mine that are already there and that are transferring in with me. So that was a lot of it for me.
In your first year at Houston, you didn't pitch. You were a position player. So you had a lot of success hitting the baseball, playing first base and being a position player. So talk about that first year and the transition of getting back into pitching while you're at Houston.
Yeah, so my first year it came down to I walked in there as a two-way, like talked to the coaches, everything. They're like, yeah, you're a two-way here. And Frank Anderson, who was actually the pitching coach at Tennessee now, I believe. I think he's still there. But I got in there and we were like, hey, we're just going to put it on the back burner this year. It's because I walked in there, I wasn't throwing nearly hard enough. They had guys on Friday night that were 94, the 97. And then Saturday guy was a great left-handed pitcher. And then our Sunday guy, I don't think lost a game for quite a while. And then even our Tuesday guy was loaded. I think he had 3 or 4 complete games in a row. So our pitching staff was just loaded top to bottom. And me being as a freshman walking in there just really competitive, I didn't want to use a red shirt or take a year off essentially.
Sure.
So I was like, and I could still swing the bat. And I had a really good fall, went in there. I think we played the USA high school team.
Yep.
They're around, played them, had a good game for that. And then opening day, had no idea if I was going to be in the lineup or not. And of course, who do I see like stenciled in at right field or first base? I can't remember where I started.
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of how it went. And my sophomore year came back to it and started throwing a little bit more.
Interesting story about Frank Anderson. Of course, I grew up in Stillwater, Oklahoma. I'm a huge Oklahoma State fan. He was the Oklahoma State head baseball coach for many, many years. His son came through, Brett Anderson, who pitched many years in the major leagues. So Frank Anderson, a great guy, a great coach, and he actually came from the University of Texas, where he was the pitching coach, to Oklahoma State to be the head coach. And the interesting part of that the head coach at Oklahoma State, Tom Holliday, who is the father of the current Oklahoma State head coach, Josh Holliday, went to become the pitching coach at the University of Texas. So they exactly switched jobs. So Frank Anderson, you mentioned his name, and I could tell how high you were on his opinion of things. Great pitching coach. He was a great head coach at Oklahoma State. So I wanted to give him a shout out. He does a great job and is a great coach at the college level. So talk a little bit more about your relationship with him.
So actually, my freshman year, when I walked in there, we just had a very real conversation. He goes, look, you got to kind of notice what's around you. And it's very hard to walk in as a freshman and have these huge expectations, where I was the guy in this small town and on travel teams and stuff like that, to where you walk in as a two-way player and you see all these POs all of a sudden that are throwing way harder than you with better off-speed stuff and can do it, quite frankly, just better at the time. And so I was so scrambled with school, baseball, lifting, studying, whatever the case was. I was just flooded with stuff. And so he goes, hey, we're going to take a step back and just really evaluate where you're at right now. And he goes, let's just focus on one thing. Where do you potentially see yourself playing more? And actually, one of the other coaches, Trip Couch, who I have a great relationship with still. And we just sat there and talked about it, like, hey, man, your best chance right now is getting on the field as much as you want to be there is going to be in the outfield right now. So that's when I kind of had the conversation with us three. We're like, hey, pitching back burner, wait it out.
Yeah.
Start focusing on the hitting a little bit more. And then on top of that, I was switch hitting. So I was trying to do both, be great from both sides, I was trying to do too much at one time. And it just, from a coaching staff and my decision, it was kind of, hey, man, let's just hold on for 1 second. And then we'll just focus on one for right now, which I needed that as a freshman walking into college.
That first semester of college,
it's
mind blowing, isn't it? All the things that you have to get done, especially when you're an athlete, and there's times where you just go, I don't know if I can do this, right? Yeah. So neat experience as you get started with your collegiate career at Houston. And then you go back to pitching your sophomore and junior years, and then your senior year, you become the starter for Houston, and you're in the primetime role. You're off to a good start. Then all of a sudden, here comes COVID. It gets shut down. And I know that was very disappointing for you. And then all of a sudden they tell you get your year back. And we'll get into some of the things that you did after you got your year back, but just kind of talk about your sophomore, junior years, and then finding out that your senior year, you didn't know if you were going to get that year back when you heard that it was going to be canceled. Talk about that time period.
Yeah, so sophomore year, showing back up on campus, I just got back from doing summer ball, and that's a whole crazy thing as it is in the middle of Baltimore, hanging out up there. And so I get back to campus sophomore year, and we had a really good team at the time. And it was one of those where I'm like, hey, I'm still focused a lot on the outfield, but had a really good fall when it came to pitching, just consistency. And just velo was a little bit tick up. The weight room was really starting to show, fall weights, everything like that. So sophomore year went good, was kind of doing both ways, just spot starting and throwing on Tuesdays my sophomore year. And then junior year comes around, and in the summer going into my junior year, I found out I had bone spurs, which was not a big fun thing. Playing in the Cape, couldn't even swing hardly, couldn't throw baseballs.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it was not fun. Go get it all evaluated, MRI up in the Cape. They're like, yeah, you got some bone spurs going on. We're gonna pluck those out. I get back to campus, and I didn't play much of a fall at all, but I was just rehabbing back from the bone spur stuff. And we had a new pitching coach come in at the exact same time, Terry Rooney. I think he's now at Purdue, the pitching coach at Purdue. And I worked with him a bunch one-on-one and really kind of developed the pitching mindset of how you go about things, how you develop a routine. Just basically took me from the very bottom foundation and built it up, which forever thankful for him for that. And just kind of taught me how to be a professional in everything I did in the college level, like having a routine. I had no idea how long I should take to warm up, what I should do after. I had no clue. Really knew how to do bands, everything like that. So he'd be like, oh, when do you want to go start your throwing? I go, 30 minutes. He goes, you have no idea. So he started pounding me with the stopwatch. He's like, hey, man, you got 12 minutes here, 2 minutes there, take a break. So go into my junior year, and I believe I started on Sundays maybe, and ended up working into the Friday job. Had a really good year. And senior year comes around with COVID and started off kind of hot. I think we played here in Round Rock at the Classic or whatever
Yeah.
it was, in Stanford, a few teams like that. And we were off to a hot start, and we're out in UNLV playing a weekend series. And I think it's right before we're about to get on the bus, our coach just kind of calls a team meeting in our breakfast room. We go down there and he's like, hey, we're not going today. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. We're just canceling the day. But we all knew everybody was kind of with the COVID stuff going on. We all kind of shut it down, went back to Houston. We were just kind of waiting on news, and then we kind of see everything's canceled and go on to everything COVID happens. I'm out playing golf just with a few of my buddies that I played at Houston with, and it was the decision day if guys get their year back or they're just going to count that as a full year. And for me, I was like, if they count that as a full year, I'm done. That's baseball. I hope it's enough on my resume.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was my last year. So I was stressing it out a ton, not really knowing. And it was me and three of the other guys that I played high school travel ball with, all committed to Houston with. And we were all just sitting there playing golf, extremely stressed.
Yeah.
We just needed something to get our minds off. So we were playing this par 3, probably the easiest course on the easiest hole.
So how did the first shot go after you heard that you got your year back?
Exactly. It just went straight in the water. Everybody, all three of ours just went straight in the water. We care less. As we got the phone call, we were like, all right, we're on, I think, 15, 16 at the time. We're like, we're just going to chalk it up, bring it back to the clubhouse, call it good. But, I mean, that was the worst hole of golf I played and also the best hole of golf.
No doubt about it. It was the best, worst shot of your life. So you get your year back and you kind of put yourself on the market and with the transfer portals, everything's open. Everything's open for shop basically year round. So you look around and man, you absolutely find a complete gold mine. And University of Arkansas Baum Stadium is the most impressive college baseball facility in all of America. I don't care what anybody says. I've been there many times. I've been there to watch Oklahoma State play in 2017 in a regional. It is just unreal. You end up being the Friday night starter on a team that is ranked number 1 for almost the entire season. So take us through that decision, the transfer portal, a decision to go to Arkansas, and that whole great year last year that you had with them.
So, yeah, it was an absolute blast. I mean, what I was kind of looking for in my criteria whenever I opened up myself to the transfer portal, it was a very real conversation. So I grew up a diehard LSU fan. I wanted to wear purple on Sundays. There was Mardi Gras beads in the house. And so once I was in the portal, my mom, my family is all in my ear. The only one kind of on my side is my dad. And I'm like, hey, I got all these other schools talking to me. And everybody's like, LSU, LSU, LSU.
They could have used you last year too.
Yeah, they were fun. But, yeah, so I have family all from the Metairie area in Louisiana. And so I ended up talking to all these schools because I wasn't really sure what my kind of level would be to these higher tier schools. Wasn't real sure if I'd get the Arkansas of college baseball. And so I think the person I had to, some academic person, when I put my name in the portal was like, hey, you'll get a call come Monday morning. This is Friday night. I'm talking to him. I'm like, okay, the weekend, just to relax and kind of decompress. Saturday morning, 10 o'clock hits. I'm drinking coffee downstairs, emails, phone calls, text. It was kind of a whirlwind that I wasn't expecting, but it was really cool to see interest in a bunch of schools that were like, hey, man, if you want to come be a big fish in a small pond trying to do their sales pitch.
Sure.
It was a really cool thing like that. And then talked to all these schools, and I kind of narrowed it down to Arkansas, Louisville, and I want to say Texas Tech at the time.
Oh man, you had some big time offers, didn't you?
Yeah, there was a lot of there was a bunch of schools that reached out, and those were kind of the ones I narrowed it down to, and had some conversations with some people that I really trusted in the college baseball world.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, hey, if you want to develop as much as you possibly can within 1 year and have that college baseball experience that many guys don't get, where you're packing in 10,000 on a 30-degree afternoon. So chose Arkansas. I mean, Matt Hobbs sold me on the analytics, everything I've heard that's great about him, and then getting to work with him one-on-one as one of his guys on campus at the time. It was something that I'm always going to be grateful for, that he took the time and trusted me, him and Dave Van Horn, all those coaches over there, strength coach Blaine Kensley, all those guys just invested in me for 1 year and got the most out of it. And whenever I heard my name get called in the draft, I knew it all paid off. So it was a really awesome experience all around.
I bet that was an awesome experience. And you talked about hearing your name in the draft and talk about draft day and everything. And I know that's you talked about all the recruiting type stuff and those things are a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. And at the end of it, usually you're pretty exhausted. I know draft day is usually a pretty stressful day. So talk about what draft day was like for you.
So it seems like I've gone through 3 or 4 of them, being that high school senior going through it. Then you go through it your junior year. Then I went through it the COVID year.
Yeah.
So my very last year, my 5th year senior, COVID senior, whatever you want to call them, it was my last draft. And so I was kind of at the point to where, hey, if they call me, they call me. It's, everything's out there. I was perfectly content with my career and my baseball career. I was like, I played at Arkansas. We're playing in front of this crazy cultish fan base, which
they are.
You get on their bad side, they'll let you know about it real fast if you get them angry. But, those people are extremely passionate. But draft day came around, and actually I got a phone call from the Mets, or from my agent, about the Mets. He was like, hey, they're taking you in the 10th round, because I think they had maybe the 4th, 5th pick every round or something like that. And so as I'm hanging up the phone call with my agent, walking downstairs to kind of tell my dad, like, hey, like this is going to happen, I get another phone call from the Dodgers here. And it's like, hey, we're taking you in the ninth round.
Yeah.
So I was like, hold on one second. As I'm about to like tell my dad, I'm just like on the phone, telling him one second. He's just staring at me real confused. I go, Dodger now. And he's like, that's super awesome. Then I hung up the phone. About 5 minutes later, agent calls me. I'm like, hey, I don't know which one I am. I think I'm a Dodger right now. And he goes, you're a Dodger. It's locked in. I was like, awesome, cool, big deal. But no, it was a really short day and a very long 5 minutes.
Oh yeah. So, that's a very good way to put it. A very short day and a very, very long 5 minutes. And you mentioned getting drafted in the 9th round by the Dodgers, an organization. You mentioned earlier too at Arkansas, one of the things that sold you were all the analytics. And the Dodgers are huge on analytics as well. So I would imagine your experience at Arkansas really helped you as you came into the organization, and you already knew, a lot of kids that come into the Dodgers organization know very little, if anything, about analytics. So you had to have had a jump start there. So how do analytics play into your game?
So it's kind of, for me, it was just understanding myself. Going into Arkansas, I wasn't sure what made me good or why my pitches got people out. And that was something, the transfer portal, I didn't want to go to a school that had nothing, and I was kind of the one that was pulling on the chain to get guys to teach me information. I got to Arkansas, and the first thing I get hit with is a flyer, basically, a full packet of all my analytics that I haven't ever seen. That he throws it down, he goes, this is your usage of certain pitches and certain counts.
Oh, wow.
This is the movement profiles of all your pitches. And he had this from my Houston starts that I never got to see. And so I was like, I don't even know how you're getting this information. But at first it was gibberish. I had nothing. I had no clue what I was looking at. So I sat down with him. We went over it, and all the assistants that were there at the time, and we kind of broke everything down, had our meeting. He's like, this is why you're good. You're sinking and running the ball. Guys are just missing it. If you're behind in the count, it's just sinking enough to where you get that easy ground ball, that double play ball.
Mm-hmm.
I was always taught forever, throw down in the zone. You're as a starter, throw it like 80, 90%. We're trying to get as many innings as possible and shorten the game for our bullpen.
Sure.
So that's the mindset I was sold forever. Get ahead, attack the bottom of the zone, sink and run, move the ball around. And so I get to Arkansas, and they're like, all right, well, your pitch profile says you could be really good if you start throwing the fastball up.
Yeah.
So I started hammering the fastball up, had very little idea on the analytics. And then as time went on, and I'd watch guys' bullpens, kind of read the Rapsodo, read the TrackMan, look at the group. And then we even had the force plate mount. You start to understand that stuff and how you use your body or use your legs, like everybody says. And it was really cool to go in there with a little bit of a head start on a lot of things that guys don't have at other schools. Mm-hmm. And it was really cool not only to have it, but to have 2 or 3 people at Arkansas that could decipher it for you and put it into like your own words. So if one person is explaining to you nothing, you don't get it, next person, you go down the line until you connect with somebody on a certain thing.
My dog's having a fit here, so I got me a little half pit bull, half Rottweiler. So I got to give her, how that goes. You got to give them attention when they need it. So, yeah, very cool story about the analytics, and the Dodgers are big on that. And so let's move into your stuff. At least the way that that I've got it: 4-pitch pitcher, fastball, curveball, change, slider. And are you more of a 2-seam now, being a professional, or are you more of a 4-seam on the fastball?
So what I came into professional ball with, I threw a lot of pitches. I was a 1-seam fastball, which was my sinker. That was my go-to forever. And that's kind of what I love. And I was a 1-seam guy, a 4-seam, a cutting changeup, essentially, just a really bad, slow spinning slider is what it looked like. And then a curveball. And so fastball, 1-seam, curve, change, slider. So I was a 5-pitch guy at the time. And so this past offseason, I actually got rid of the 1-seam, started hammering more 4-seam to basically work up in the zone, which I talked to a bunch of our pitching directors here. They're like, hey, this pitch works and this is why it works. And I was sold on it. That's all you need to tell me. And I throw with it a few times during instructs at the time and threw really well. Guys were missing it and I could trust it and had great feel for it. And then instead of a changeup this offseason, I tried to get a true fading changeup, and I could never develop the feel. I could throw great catch play with it. It was awesome. Get on the mound, gone. See ya. No idea how it works. Completely lost on me. So I ended up going back to a splitter now, which I threw in high school a long time ago and kind of got rid of it in college just to keep it simple.
More of a tumble effect for you, maybe?
Correct. Perfect. So I had a cutting changeup with anywhere from 600 to 1,000 spin. Now I have a splitter going the ASR that I want, the fading action, which was the direction I needed. And it's got about the same spin. That's 600 to 1,000 spin, which has been really great for me. And then still that slider curveball is kind of my repertoire now.
Yeah, that slider curveball that you have is really, really good because, you use them, at least from what I've seen, in many different ways. You can throw strikes for them. They're really good high strike efficiency pitches for you. And then you can locate them to the bottom of the zone, to each side of the plate, and backdoor as far as the slider goes. You can throw it to a back foot, to a right-hander. So you use your curveball and slider very effectively in many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was I never had that overpowering stuff. I was always a lower velocity guy. And going back to Terry Rooney, he really taught me how to pitch. I was never blessed with, hey, I'm a rare back and get one by you, or I'm just having filthy stuff. So I really had to learn how to pitch first before I started seeing the velo slowly come with it. And once the velo came, it kind of made I could get away with a little bit more. I didn't have to be as perfect, which I think it really helped me in that aspect. But the curveball for me, it's a big land strike one, maybe second time through the order, kind of start to pitch guys backwards, or just a freeze pitch just in general. And I'm just lucky to have enough command with it to see when I want to throw it on the plate, I can throw it on the plate. And then the slider for me has kind of been my out pitch once I developed it. Just let it rip, aim down the middle, throw it as hard as you can. The action's going to take over, let the grip do its thing. And it's been really lucky for me to have those two pitches.
Yeah, and very effective with all the pitches you have. And, of course, you were used in relief this last year mostly for Great Lakes. You were a starter at Arkansas. So you pitched in every which role, and the Dodgers love versatility. So do you have a preference which way you'd like to go in the future between starting and relieving, or do you care?
Oh, for me, it doesn't really matter. The fastest way to LA, fastest way to the big league. Trust me, everything gets a whole lot more fun when you get out there. And so whichever one they want, I'm all for it. If they want to start me a day and then, who knows, go out the pin, long relief, close, left on left. It doesn't matter to me. At this point, it's just the fastest way to LA.
Yeah, and you got drafted last summer in July, and obviously the lockout's going on. So what does a guy like you do that just got drafted last summer between then and now?
So for me, it was a whole lot of focusing on the offseason, just being in a great spot. Was able to go back to Fayetteville, Arkansas for the offseason and take advantage of all the brand new toys that they got over there. I mean, if you want it, they have it. And if they don't have it, they're going to order it. It's going to be there the next day. So, I mean, I got lucky to go there and work with a few big leaguers that were there. And it was an absolute blast of mine to go down there. And it was a lot of the returning dudes were around. So you're around a great group of guys working out, getting your work done. And then just being around dudes I played with last year just made the offseason go a little bit quicker and a little bit lighter. But, when guys step into the office there, it was really intense and really focused and really just getting there to get your work done and really focus on your work at the time.
Lyle, I appreciate you joining me tonight. This has been an interesting story for me. This is, for all of the kids that are out there that like you mentioned, learning how to pitch and learning how to control your pitches and learning what's best for you and how to get guys out. This has been a great conversation that I think a lot of young kids could take a lot out of it. And so thank you so much for being on Dodger Poke Report, and I greatly enjoyed getting to know you this evening.
Absolutely. It was a blast.